With Harry Ford out of the picture, who will be the Mariners' backup catcher in 2026? Mitch Garver or someone else? We'll answer that and more coming up here on Mailbag Monday. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, December 8th, 2025. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. My name is Todd Gonzalez, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Colby Patnode. We're two lifelong Mariners fans who've been covering the team for over half a decade, and today we're opening up the mailbag like we do here every single Monday and answering some of your Mariners questions. But before we do, I want to shout out our title sponsor today, FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Kicking us off here on Mailbag Monday is Matt, who wants to know an obvious one, but what are your thoughts on backup catcher? Well, we already kind of shared our thoughts on this on Saturday during our Jose Ferrer trade reaction episode, but we've had a little bit more time to sit on this. Colby, you still in the boat that Mitch Garver is coming back?
Yeah, it's the most obvious fit. It's the most obvious choice. Garver is a guy who knows your pitching staff very well. He knows your clubhouse very well. He knows the organization. He works in the room with Cal. And I would think that, Mitch is at the point in his career where he understands that, like, I'm a backup catcher. Like, that is how I'm going to stay in this league. And so I suppose it's possible that maybe there's a team out there who looks at Garver and says, hey, let's give him more DH at bats. Let's, make catching only part of his profile. And let's try that. Let's give him, $6-7 million to, see if we can get anything out of him. Then in that case, you say goodbye and you move on. But Garver at $3 to $4 million is a perfectly capable backup catcher. Like, he's not great, but he's fine. And again, when you factor in that he knows your pitching staff well, how he works in your clubhouse, and that he knows the organization and all of that, it's just really hard to find a better fit for the money. Could you do a little better? Maybe, but maybe not. I think you look at this free agent class that's out there, and anybody who you would look at as a definite upgrade from Mitch Garver, when you factor in everything that Garver brings to the table with the familiarity, those guys are almost all going to be looking for starting gigs or primary gigs, like Danny Jansen or who's the Astros guy? Jonah Heim, yeah, but also Victor Carantini. Like, those guys probably all looking for primary catcher jobs, and obviously that is just not a thing that the Mariners can offer. So I think Garver at $3-4 million makes a ton of sense. He starts pushing to the $5, $6, $7, $8 million range.
I highly doubt that.
I highly doubt. But again, if somebody's out there like, oh, I don't know, the Pirates, they're desperate to spend money. Let's spend $8 million on Garver to be the DH so we could tell people we spent money. That sounds like a very Pirate thing to do.
Sure.
It's if that happens, you say goodbye. But $3-4 million for a backup catcher, that's pretty standard. And again, you're not going to find one that knows your pitching staff better, that's going to work better in your clubhouse, that will work better in your clubhouse. And at $3-4 million, he's totally fine. That is a perfectly legitimate backup catcher, even for a team like the Mariners, who have World Series aspirations. I just hope he's not the primary right-handed hitter off the bench. I hope that's also part of his description.
I just hope that this time around they wouldn't be deploying him the way that they even deployed him in 2025.
Yeah,
right. That would be strictly, you're the backup catcher. You only play when either Cal is DHing or he's getting a full day off. That's it. You're not an option to come off the bench to hit against lefty pitching for the most part. Like, maybe there's a couple of instances here and there where you just try to take a shot, see if you can put one over the wall, whatever. But for the most part, you are a backup catcher. So I'm totally fine with this. Obviously, again, like I said, on Saturday, like I tweeted the other day, like, Mitch Garver at $12 million a year sucks, right? And that ultimately magnified how, just how mediocre he was, because he was making that kind of money and because he was supposed to be a middle of the order bat for you, and he was supposed to be the everyday DH, blah, 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 blah. But Mitch Garver at $3 to $4 million as strictly a backup catcher, that is totally fine. Now, can you do better for maybe the same amount of money or even less, not on the free agent market, maybe via the trade market. But at that point, then you're going to have to, spend prospects or, something else. Right. So you also have to weigh that as well. But I would like for them to, at the very least, explore all options before they decide, we're just going to dive back into bringing Garver back. And that's it. We'll see. But if that's what winds up being the case, and I think that is what winds up, that's what's going to wind up being the case, then that's totally fine. All right, Seattle Surge wants to know if the Mariners had the chance to get Daniel Susac in the Rule 5 draft. He's an A's prospect, for those that don't know, catching prospect in the A's system. Would you be comfortable to have him for a whole season as your backup catcher?
Yeah. The Mariners are going to try and find their backup catcher in the Rule 5. There's actually some options this year, and Susac isn't even my favorite option of the potential catchers. There's a catcher by the name of Noah Cardenas. He's in the Twins system. He finished the year at AAA, so he's probably ready for a backup role. He is solid glove, and when you kind of look at the underlying metrics, his overall numbers weren't as good as Susac's, but he walks a lot more. He strikes out a lot less. He chases less, which is a big thing for Susac. He expands the zone. He also pulls the ball in the air more than Susac, which we know as a Mariner T-Mobile Park player, you have to be able to pull the ball. If you're in the gaps, if you're hitting fly balls in the gaps, those are outs more often than they're hits. And so Cardenas actually has pull power. Susac probably has more raw power across the field, but again, if you're mostly going to center field, left center field, right center field, those are going to be outs a lot of the time. Now, again, we're talking about a guy who's probably only going to get 50 starts at most. So whatever, it's not a big deal. I like Cardenas a little more, but Susac would be fine. There's also, I can't remember his first name, but there's a catcher in the Diamondback system. I think his last name is Serta. He's also an interesting guy who had a really nice year, didn't strike out. But I think he's just a little bit further behind defensively than somebody like Sardinas and also Susac. So there's actually a couple options beyond the dish in the Rule 5. Susac would be fine. Again, we're talking about a backup. But I just look at the profile and I think that Sardinas actually fits better for the ballpark. And ultimately, I think both these guys defensively, they're going to be just fine as the primary backup. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
And again, as a backup catcher, you're significantly more likely to be able to carry the guy on the roster for an entire year. Whereas, other positions in the Rule 5, it's really tough to do that. So, yeah, there are actually a couple of options to consider here, not just Susac.
All right, we will answer more of your questions here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is once again brought to you by FanDuel as well as Doer. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment as live spreads and money lines adjust instantly and player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Holidays are here, and this year, I'm not stressing about what to wear because I'll be wearing my Doers. These are the most comfortable pants I own, hands down, and I ain't gonna lie, they make me look good. I've been recommended Doer to all my friends because these are my favorite jeans to wear for any occasion. I can really tell a difference with Doer's high quality, temperature regulating Cool Max fabrics. They keep me warm, but I don't overheat. Doer invented the original performance denim, and they give us the best of both worlds, combining classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, designed to look great and stay comfortable all day long, all year round. And it's time for you to experience the comfort of Doer. I know you'll love these. Pick up a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Find Doer at your local Seattle REI location or shop online at shopdoer.com/lockedonseattle. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's shopdoer.com/lockedonseattle for 15% off. Shopdoer.com/lockedonseattle. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen for all things Mariners. And also thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Mariners with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonmariners.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, it's Mailbag Monday. Let's get back into your questions. Aiden wants to know, what Mariners prospects currently in your top 10 would you consider trading this offseason and a prospect for prospect deal? Curious if you see this as a potential route to fill farm system holes. Typically, this is like, we're going to give you a higher upside guy who's further away for a guy that's, closer in proximity and might not be as good of a prospect as the guy that we're trading. So to me, this would probably be something like Felton Celestin for a pitcher to add maybe some starting pitching depth behind your rotation. Maybe someone who's a little bit closer than Senja and Anderson. Maybe it would be like Celestin for like one of the Pirates guys, like Thomas Harrington. That's what initially came to mind.
Yeah, I mean that's the type of deal you're talking about, but I wouldn't trade any of my top 10 for that type of deal. It's if I'm trading top 10 prospects, I want major league help, immediate major league help, and all those guys, while they could help you, there's also a very high likelihood they don't help you. Not only because they're rookies, but because again, like if you're talking about trying to get a better number 6 starter. There's a decent chance that by the time you need that number 6 starter, Kate Anderson's ready or Senja's ready. And now you just don't have Felton Celestin.
To be clear, that was just an example.
Right.
I'd rather just keep Felton Celestin.
Right. I'm all for trading Celestin if it helps me get major league talent, like proven major league talent.
If Celestin's part of a Ketel Marte trade. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, even if I get like an everyday, like a viable, proven everyday right fielder, like I'm fine trading top 10 prospects for that. Obviously, again, you don't want to trade, Felton Celestin for a 1-win platoon right-handed hitting right fielder. But like, I'd rather do that than trade him for a prospect who may or may not help me. Like I'm not giving up talent to fill farm system holes. It's not really a thing. You fill farm system holes late in the draft, not by trading your top talent. The Mariners top 10 is so good that just feels like a waste. So is it possible you could trade like a top 10 talent and get something that helps you in the majors and that kind of, role player that you can put in the minors and the upper minors? Sure. I mean, that's possible, but in a prospect for prospect swap, I'm really not interested in doing that this winter. Because again, my focus is different than it has been in the past. I want major league talent. And again, obviously there are, there are caveats to every statement that is made. If you could trade Felton Celestin for, I mean, you can't, but like if you could trade Felton Celestin for Kevin McGonigal, then like, yeah, fine, do it. But like, obviously that's not going to happen. So in general, I'm not a fan of this idea. But if you are looking at trades like that, the ideas that Ty came up with are pretty much what it would be like to make that happen. And I just prefer not to do that.
Bryce wants to know, are the M's at the point now where they are making moves primarily with October in mind rather than the regular season? It's probably a spectrum, with the Dodgers being an extreme example, but it feels like the front office is looking more at what will win playoff series, like adding another lefty reliever. I mean, sure. That's probably part of it. I also think like adding Ferrer specifically, and building upon the bullpen group without subtracting from that is more so just to protect themselves over the course of the regular season, specifically with the relievers, because we talked about this. Relievers are so volatile. Those 4 guys in particular, Brash, Munoz, Spire, and Bizzardo, threw just so much over the course of 2025, including an extra month. By the way, they threw a lot just relative to regular season standards, right? So add in an extra month of how much they threw, like that's a lot. And so, you worry about either guys just falling off a cliff because of that. Maybe they just ran out of gas, or they, injuries crop up. So I think more so the emphasis on building upon the bullpen without taking anything away from it. It's more just about the everyday grind of the regular season. But also I do think a little bit of that. Yeah, you have to, look, what was the biggest problem or at least one of the biggest problems for you in the postseason? Didn't have enough guys in your bullpen. You ran your 4 big guys into the ground, and you didn't really have anything else behind them that you could trust. So yeah, I think that has stuck in the back of Justin Hollander and Jerry DePoto's minds, and they're thinking ahead towards that and towards October. And you never know what's going to be available and what's not going to be available at the deadline. So addressing some of that now, like if you have the opportunity to do it, you do it. But again, like to just answer your question, I think that's more so, if I had to, I would say it's at least like 75% just about the everyday grind rather than looking ahead to October, because you don't even know if you're going to be able to get to October. You have to get there first.
Right. Like signing Josh Naylor and having him from the start of the year helps you in the regular season. It makes you significantly more likely to make the playoffs again. It doesn't really help you win a playoff series because you had Josh Naylor in the playoffs. And I mean, obviously he was a big part of the reason you even got to Game 7. In the first place. He also couldn't win it for you. And that's not a shot at Josh Naylor. I'm just, he was already on the team and you weren't good enough. So, but obviously you want Naylor because he makes you better in the regular season, and you have to make the playoffs, like Ty said, before you worry about, that type of stuff. And I continue to say, I don't think Mariner fans quite remember how close they came to missing the playoffs entirely. Like it was not a foregone. They had to win 17 of 18. Now they didn't actually have to win all 17 of them, but
but they had to go on a crazy run though.
They did. And credit to them. They did it. That's awesome. You can't rely on that. And by the way, they just as easily on the 17 of 18 run, they just as easily could have won all 18, but they also could have just won 12. That would have been a really good run, but it wouldn't have been enough. So I don't think Mariner fans are we got into the second week of September and we weren't sure if the Mariners were going to make the playoffs. In fact, we would say it's probably a true 50-50 shot at best. And then you went on and you had a really nice schedule where you got to play the Angels and the corpse of the Cardinals, and you still barely won those games. And you got to play Kansas City, who was struggling at the end. And then you went into Houston, you took care of business. You won that division title fair and square. You took it from them, not taking anything away from the Mariners, but you were a lot closer to missing the playoffs last year than I think people realize. And you also have to realize that, the Astros, they're going to come back. The Rangers,
they're going to be healthier. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we'll see. They might lose Framber, maybe whatever. Right. They're still the Astros. They're going to be healthier. They're going to have Jordan. They're blah, blah, blah.
They're probably going to be a pain in
the Yankees are going to try and get better. The Blue Jays are going to try and get better. The Red Sox already have gotten better. Other teams are going to try and, jump up and knock you out of the playoffs, not just in your own division, but out of wild card contention. And you were, again, very close in the grand scheme of things to not missing the playoffs. It doesn't seem like it, because they were basically unbeatable in September and they got to take the last 4 or 5 days off and they got the bye week. So it seems like they cruised to the playoffs. They didn't. They did not. And I feel like a lot of Mariner fans are forgetting that. So you still have to build a team that can, win more games in the regular season, and a team that can do better in the postseason. And Ferrer does both of those things. He helps you in the regular season and the postseason. So I don't think it's all about just September. There certainly is. They're taking lessons from October. With hey, the bullpen, we ran those guys into the ground. We need more help out of the bullpen. Let's go get that help. But they're also looking at it very clearly hey, we also need to make sure we get into a position where the playoffs are something that we can count on with regularity. So I think it's both. Like you said, it's a spectrum. But and again,
if what happens if Gabe Spire falls off a cliff, or Edward Bizzardo falls off a cliff, or he gets hurt, or one of those guys get hurt.
It's Tommy John. I mean, he lost Matt Brash for a whole year.
At that point now, we're not scrambling, right? At that point now, we're not oh God, Carlos Vargas has to be a high leverage guy, or we're screwed.
Colin Snyder, Casey Legumina to step up, otherwise we're screwed. And it's just, That's why they should continue to add to the bullpen, by the way. But yeah,
and it seems like they're going to.
Yeah, like you said, it's a spectrum, and they are certainly factoring in both of those things. But you have to focus on the 162 game marathon, because if you don't finish that marathon well, you're not even going to have to worry about October, and none of that matters. So the focus still has to be on building the best regular season team you can. But yeah, they're also going to look at, the lessons learned from the postseason and be like, okay, let's start to address that while also, making because like, it's not like they're going out and signing Billy Hamilton, right, to be the 26th guy on their bench just to steal bases in October. They might do that, but like they're not right now. So yeah, it's a little bit of both, but you do have to actually make sure you get to the playoffs is the point.
All right, well, we'll answer a couple more of your questions in just a moment, but first a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Gametime. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Prices include fees up front, which I love because there are no last second surprises at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, Gametime. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone. And on there, we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/Control the Zone. Link in the description of this episode. Let's get back into your questions here on Mailbag Monday. Jeff wants to know, do we leave with another reliever or infield/outfielder after the winter meetings end? Also, do we add anyone or lose anyone in the Rule 5 draft? I think it's possible they actually might get their infielder in the next few days. According to Jesse Rogers of ESPN, Jorge Polanco is expected to sign this week, so that might be it right there. Also, John Morosi today said that specifically the trade market for second baseman. Yeah, the yapper, I know. But he did say that the second base market, the trade market for second baseman is starting to heat up a bit. Ketel Marte, Brendan Donovan, Jake Cronenworth, he mentioned there in that regard. And I think Donovan's probably the pivot for the Mariners if Polanco signs elsewhere. Obviously.
Been mentioned twice with the Mariners by national reporters in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything? No, because it's Morosi and Heyman, and they're not exactly, tuned in to the Mariners.
Yeah, I was going to say, who are the national reporters, Colby?
I mean, fine. We'll wait for Jeff Passan to say the Mariners are involved, and then we can all freak out. How about that?
There we go.
But it's worth noting. It's at least worth noting. So... Yeah, because they should,
and obviously, and obviously, Marte, like that's my preference, even over Polanco. So
the number of you guys who are concerned about what he might look like in 2029 is frankly baffling to me. Do you want to win the World Series or not?
Yeah.
What's the goal in 2026? Wake up, people. Anyways.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I kind of feel like maybe we might get the next like big, maybe the biggest move of the offseason from the Mariners. Well, Naylor's probably going to be the biggest, but if they trade for Marte, that would be by far.
That they make.
Yeah. So the other reason that or really the main reason that I picked Jeff's question here though was for the Rule 5 part of it. So we already talked about some of the catchers. Anyone else that stands out to you in the Rule 5 that you think they might actually take?
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting names this year, more so than even normal. Cardenas and Susac obviously make the most sense because there's a very quick path, and a very easy path for them to stay on your roster all year and actually contribute. Alex Pham is a relief pitcher in the Orioles organization. He was left unprotected. Griff McGarry, you guys might have heard of him. He might sound familiar. He's been a prospect for like ever. Has some command and control issues, but a 35% strikeout rate last year in AAA for the Phillies. That's really interesting as well. Ben Peoples, an interesting arm to look at from the White Sox organization. I think it's RJ Petit, might be Pettit, Petit. He's an interesting guy. He had a sub 2.5 ERA last year for the Tigers, who know a thing or two about developing pitching. He had a 29.5% K rate, only an 8.2% walk rate. He's really interesting as well. His big weapon is the sinker changeup guy. Although he does try to throw the slider, it's fine. It's just not great. It's not his best pitch. So there are some actual dudes, and obviously there's always guys, who there's probably an outfielder out there that makes some sense, but you're almost certainly going to be sending that guy back to whoever you take him from. It's pretty much relief pitchers that you're trying to find, especially if you're a team like Seattle who's got aspirations in 2026. So you're probably looking at guys who you might be able to sneak into the bullpen. But yeah, I mean, like there's an outfielder named Kyler Fedko who hit 28 bombs for the Twins organization last year with a 21% strikeout rate. He also stole 38 bases. So like he's an interesting guy. But odds are you're probably offering him back to the Twins at some point. So you kind of have to focus on relievers. And this year, because of a very specific circumstance, maybe a couple of the catchers make sense.
All right, next question here from Mariners fan 2412, with Ferrer being the second lefty. Now who out of the middle tier of right-handed relievers, Kyle Finnegan, Seranthony Dominguez, Shawn Armstrong, etc., fits best in the current bullpen now? Finnegan offers the good splitter / fastball, Armstrong with cutter sweeper, Dominguez fastball sweeper. I would actually go with Tyler Rogers. I think that's interesting. That idea that Adam Jude brought up, and the Mariners have done some digging on him, just with the the very, very unique look that he would bring to the bullpen. I'm super interested in the Tyler Rogers idea. I would like for them to go do better. Like I would like for them to just go spend the money on like Pete Fairbanks personally, but I think they'll actually
Fairbanks, do that. Some questions about Fairbanks declining a little bit over the last couple of years, but still should be pretty good. Yeah, I think you're probably in the right tier. Finnegan, I think, probably has the highest upside. Armstrong is probably the guy I trust the most. Dominguez is just he's
I'm
very
not a big
similar
Dominguez
to everybody
guy.
else.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he's just similar to everybody else you have in the bullpen too, just in terms of, stuff and like how sinker slider guy, like, whatever. I still like some different, like some different look. And so Rogers, because of his extreme submarine act, is totally fine. I like that. I like that Armstrong is kind of a cutter heavy guy. So that's fun. I like that Finnegan, is splitter fastball. I like some variety in the bullpen. And right now you have two lefties who are sinker slider heavy, although again, Ferrer should throw his slider actually more and his changeup more. And you have you have three righties who are all very sinker slider heavy from similar arm slots. I would like a little bit of variety. So I would give preference to guys who aren't sinker slider heavy, but ultimately you just want the best guy you can possibly get. So you figure out which one you like the best and kind of trust the Mariners to pick the right one. But yeah, Rogers would be fun, although I think he might get 2-3 years, and I'm not sure if the Mariners are willing to do 2-3 on a reliever. Especially if he's going to be making like $12 million. Now, I don't know if Rogers is going to make that or not. I don't know. But I'm pretty confident Armstrong's not going to make that. I think of the three guys you mentioned, Armstrong's probably the guy for me. But Finnegan would be fine. And Seranthony Dominguez, he's fine. Like, I'm not going to be upset. But also, I just feel like you have that guy. And, if Bizzardo went down, you would still have that guy. So I'm looking for something a little bit different than what I currently have.
So tomorrow is Top 5 Tuesday. So before we get out of here, we're going to spin the helm in the Ed Helms. Now, this might be the last Top 5 Tuesday for a little while because we're going to 3 shows a week starting next week. So I think we've already kind of announced that. But letting you guys know now, and we'll let you guys know again in the future. We're going to 3 shows a week starting next week until February 1st. So it won't be that long, but we'll have a few weeks here where there's going to be fewer shows than usual. And we won't be recording on Tuesdays. We'll be recording Monday and dropping these episodes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So we might mix it in here and there. It just won't be on a Tuesday. So yeah, I'm tackling the helm this time around. So let's spin the wheel for me. And I am getting reliever targets. Okay. So now that they've acquired Ferrer, who's the other reliever? Right.
What a great first spin, Ty.
Thanks, Colby. Yeah, it was totally the first spin that we did. Totally the first take of this. So yeah, so again, like now that they've acquired Ferrer, who else do they go get? And they still have all the money that they had to spend before the Ferrer trade. So could they spend a little bit of money on a reliever? I'll dive into that. I might give you, a few different options. So we'll see. But that one should be fun tomorrow. So look forward to that. All right, it is now time to spin Ed Helms for Colby's topic tomorrow on Top 5 Tuesday. See what he gets. Far more options on this wheel than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
MILB hats. This one has been on here forever, so I'm actually kind of glad that we're finally clearing this one off. Best hats.
My league base. Sure. There's some good ones.
There are some good ones. I know there are a lot of ones that you really like. So this one should actually be pretty easy for you. Yeah, this one should be pretty easy for you to put together.
Do defunct teams still count?
Yeah, go for it.
Congratulations, Modesto Nuts. You live on.
All right, well, that's what you have to look forward to tomorrow on Top 5 Tuesday. But for now, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.